なんでお前はあの時僕を助けてくれたんだ。
How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Child Kazuki's route, which has been completely crazy. Like, monsters, an assassin from the Committee of 300, who, spoiler alert, is our club advisor, a teacher here at the school. He tried to kill us. He's gonna try and kill us. We're actually supposed to be facing off against him. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Regardless, this has just been quite the ride, and we're not done yet.
新聞部だから。
It was a very simple answer, almost disappointingly so. To me, Kazuki was just the quiet, unfriendly girl that Kirisu had brought to the club. She was always playing her games, and she never talked, so honestly, I had kind of tried to avoid her. The most I'd ever thought of her was that she was sometimes useful in putting together the data Ito and I had gathered on the computer. To me, she'd barely even had been part of the newspaper club.
喋らない私なんかに居場所与えてくれた。何も言わないのに置いてくれた。そんな先輩たちのこと結構好きだから、タクル先輩のことももちろん。
Oh, hell yeah.
だから先輩困ってたら後輩として助けたい。
That kind of explains why she was so helpful in the common route. She was a much kinder girl than I'd ever imagined. She probably couldn't refuse when someone asked her for help. Once she felt like someone had been kind to her, she would never forget it. After talking to her, I finally understood who Kazuki Hana was.
助けたいか。
You guys didn't hear that. Or at least I hope you didn't. If we wanted to save Kirisu and damage Wakui, we would need to plunge the entire world into chaos and then die before we fixed any of it. The odds were incredibly low. Even Kazuki didn't know what would happen when she used her power.
どうせダメ元なんだから、やってみてもいいかもしれないな。
タクル先輩。
やろう、僕らで。
うん。
Kazuki smiled in relief with tears in her eyes. I didn't feel any better about it though. If someone wanted to take my place, I'd gladly switch. But if there was some small chance that at least Kirisu could survive, maybe it was just a little better than letting him kill us. Yeah, so to recap a little late here, Kirisu has been kidnapped by said assassin, our instructor. What are the fucking odds, too? I really should just suspect everybody, to be completely honest. So he has kidnapped her, we have to go face off against him, and Nightheart, who is the main character of Chaos Head, believe it or not, Takumi or whatever the fuck his name is, had suggested that we should use the sumo stickers to our advantage. What that means, I have no idea. I left the dorm. We talked for a while about how exactly we were going to face Wakui until there was just an hour left before the time he'd given, excuse me. Fear filled my chest. I took deep breaths so that I could stay calm. There wasn't much we could do. More than anything, if we wanted to use Kazuki's power to its fullest, we needed to go someplace with a lot of people. The most populated place in Shibuya right now was the Hikaryuo. Actually, every other place in Shibuya was empty. Ito had told me yesterday that people without any home except Shibuya had taken the place over. We were lucky that Wakui had told us to go there. The plan was to arrive early and just have Kazuki say as many words as possible. If something happened, good for us. It wasn't even fair to call this a plan. But with only an hour left, there was nothing else we could do.
お待たせかもです。
Well, I'm not. Kazuki came out of the dorm.
ちゃんと着替えたのか？
うん。下着とスカートだけかも。
ああ、そう。
Oh yeah, that was nasty. I actually censored that. I've gotten really heavy with my censoring over the years. So you better believe I'm gonna censor up some pee. Kazuki had wet herself when Wakui had attacked her, so I made her change. It would have been better if she'd switched into something easier to move around in, but for some reason she was still in her uniform. I displayed the map on my Pokecom. It was a photo of the map in the club room I'd taken yesterday. No one told me in the comments that I messed up, so I'm assuming that I did that right. If not, then bad ending, here we come. If we wanted to get to Hikariwo, we'd have to avoid the monsters appearing from the portal device. The fastest and safest route from the Hekiho Dorm 1 to the station was...
明治通りに出よう。宮下公園の横にある地下鉄の入り口から地下に潜って、一気に光尾まで行く。
Kazuki nodded and slowly offered me a piece of dried squid. Did she want me to eat it?
これが最後の晩餐とはね。
I gratefully took the squid from Kazuki and bit into it. The unique smell and taste filled my mouth.
うまいな。
I'm glad we got to listen to all that. As I felt like I was starting to cry, Kazuki grabbed me by the arm. Her tiny body was still shaking. We were going to die, so of course she was. She may have hated to lose, but that didn't mean she wasn't scared. I patted her lightly on the back to encourage her, and then started to lead the way. But our plan quickly hit a stumbling block. Our investigation yesterday hadn't found any portals around here, but...
やっぱりある。
We concealed ourselves as we looked down from the pedestrian bridge onto Meiji Street. That's a monster. 5 huge dragons covered in yellow and black scales were stomping up and down the block. When I looked in the direction of the station, I could see the distinctive light of a portal device 50 meters ahead of us. We went back to the park and hid.
一昨日はなかったはずなんだ。あんな目立つところにあったなら見逃すはずがない。
じゃあ、
昨日から今日にかけて出現したんだろうな。
So what do we do now? How are we supposed to get to the Hikariwo? There wasn't much time left.
ポータル装置は渋谷駅をぐるっと取り囲むようにして出現している。光尾は駅のすぐ東側。電車は使えない。渋谷駅には電車は来ない。
多少無理するしかないかも。正面突破的な。
確かにポータル装置の半径100メートル以内に入っても絶対に襲われるっていうわけじゃない。見つからないようにして素早く駆け抜ければ。
What if, for example, we were to run from our present location, the back of the Miyashita Park management office, over the pedestrian bridge, down the stairs, and then to the subway entrance?
いや、危険すぎる。
Kazuki tilted her head at me in confusion. Why was it dangerous? Time for a lecture.
あの化け物どもの身体能力ははっきり分かってないだろう。何しろ、元はゲームの中にいたモンスターなんだ。
私、ゲームじゃ何度も戦ってる。
そういう問題じゃないから。ゲームで戦うのと現実で戦うのはわけが違うんだ。あいつらが本気出した時の足の速さとか狡猾さを僕らは好みで体感してない。それに仮に路上をうろついている奴らをやり過ごしたとして地下鉄の駅の中に他の化け物がいないとは限らない。いざそうなった時退路がなくなる。地上に戻るわけにはいかなくなるんだから。それは想定される中で最悪の事態だ。
Which was another reason I wanted to approach things from a safe spot. If we died before we could use Kazuki's power, there would be no point. We wouldn't be able to save Kirisu or hurt Wakui. Kazuki seemed to agree. I loaded the map image back onto my Pokecom.
最寄り駅まで遠回りしている時間的な余裕もそんなにない。
I thought about heading down the tracks from Shinzen, Daikanyama, or, Omotesando stations? We'll go with that, but that wasn't realistic. Those stations were still running. If one of the staff caught us sneaking onto the tracks, we might lose valuable time. Was there any other way? I glared at the map.
地図上では抜け道はあるように見える。
On the map at least. The 100-meter radius around the portal device was just a safe zone the police had established. If we used that as a base to look at where in Shibuya was safe to travel, as long as we could get through the Saibo department store right next to the Tatsuya, we could make it out onto Scramble Crossing, and we had Kazuki's D-Sword to do that. There were no portal devices in Scramble Crossing as of yesterday. A new one might have appeared, but that whole area was a complex maze, both above and below ground, and we might be able to escape.
ここだろ。
Kazuki looked at the route I showed her and quickly nodded. The sky was a cheerful blue, but beneath it, the buildings were as quiet as the dead. As we ran through the streets, we could hear the distant howls of monsters. I felt like I'd become a character in a video game. We were going through a tiny safe area, dodging between the various danger spots. And that safe area was just something I'd come up with quickly, and hadn't had a long time to think about. There was no guarantee at all that it was actually safe. Kinda reminds me whenever you're trying to sneak around enemies and stuff like in an MMORPG like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV. You're trying to make sure that they don't see you because you're just trying to get past them. You don't want to have to deal with them. You just want to get to your destination, but they're kind of in the way. So you try to figure out the best way around them. The stress of knowing that a monster might leap out at us at any minute started to wear me down. But still. We broke open the shutter at Saibo department store and ran down the building. Then across the abandoned Scramble Crossing and under the bridge, and somehow managed to reach the Hikariwo. Been a while since we've been here. It felt like just yesterday when we had to face off against our foster father and our quote-unquote imaginary friend. What a fun few hours that was. The door was wide open, and I could see many homeless people inside. I hadn't seen this many people together for days. There were hundreds of them. Some were sleeping on beds made of cardboard, and others were enjoying a lunchtime banquet of drinks and snacks. All the voices overlapped into a chaotic spiral of noise. I felt strangely at home. Kazuki and I looked at each other.
これだけの数の人がいれば十分だろう。準備はいい。
We had less than 15 minutes until noon.
やれ。
Kazuki took a deep breath.
超強い力士シール
And screamed into the Hikariwo.
超強い力士シール
Again.
超強い力士シール
And again.
超強い力士シール
All the people gathered at the Hikariwo were staring in shock at this teenage girl who'd shown up out of nowhere and started shouting nonsense at them. All the noise in the entrance hall faded into dead silence.
超強い力士シール
Kazuki's voice was the only thing you could hear.
超強い力士シール
It sounded like some kind of gag. She only screamed the one phrase. Her goal was to imprint it as deeply as she could into the minds of the people here. That was the best plan we could come up with in the short amount of time we had. There might have been a better way, but as exhausted and stressed out as we were, it didn't seem likely that we'd be able to come up with it. Of course, I didn't expect this plan to work. It was barely even a plan at all. But even so, since Kazuki's power couldn't be controlled, there was no telling what exactly it could do, The possibilities were infinite. The same way it had created those portal devices all around Shibuya and the monsters that came with them. Maybe it would do something we didn't expect. My hope was that it would create a sumo sticker stronger than all of the ones in Shibuya combined. At this point, it was all luck. I had no idea what would happen. Maybe nothing would. There wasn't much time left at all until noon. These last 10 minutes were all that we had left. All we could hope for was that something would appear that would help us fight Wakui. There was barely anything I could do, except maybe stay here with Kazuki. Yeah, I was gonna say, for somebody that doesn't speak a lot, she's eventually gonna have some problems. Kazuki must have hurt her throat from screaming so much. She suddenly started to cough and heave, but she kept yelling. Kazuki gasped and fell silent. Nothing had happened yet. Nothing happened. That was the reality. There just wasn't enough time for Kazuki's power to create something. We'd lost our chance to fight back. And at this rate, we wouldn't be able to save Kirisu either. The regret threatened to overwhelm me. But I couldn't run away now. I had to go. I told myself that I couldn't stop here. Kazuki whispered and softly took my hand. I gripped her hand back. Her warmth made me feel just a little bit better. The only good thing about this was that Kazuki said that she'd stay with me until the end. Otherwise, I might have been too scared to go. Now look up. Go to Wakui. That's your last chance to save Kirisu. The homeless men were still looking at us in shock. We ignored them and headed for the elevators, still holding each other's hands. Oh boy. The theater cube was on the 11th floor of the Hikariwo. The entrance hall was called the Sky Lobby, and it was an all-glass observation deck. You could look out and see Shibuya from there. Even at this height, I could see how empty the town was. It was like time itself had stopped.
Oi, 君たち、時間ギリギリだよ.
Hey man, we're here at least. The entrance was empty, except for Wakui. He spoke like he was still our teacher, and we were still his students. It pissed me off. He was a bag of shit, wearing the skin of a teacher. I hated myself for not seeing it sooner. There was a single chair next to him. Kirisu was in it. She didn't respond. She wasn't tied down or restrained in any way. She was sitting up straight, her posture excellent, with her hands on her lap. Her expression was lifeless. Her eyes were open, but there was no sparkle in them. He couldn't have.
別に大したことはしてないんだけどね。ちょっとばかり過去の傷をえぐってあげたぐらいだよ。
お前。
体を傷つけたりはしていないんだ。ちょっとおとなしくなってもらっただけさ。非難されても困るな。
My vision turned red with rage. I was overtaken by the impulse to punch him in the face. Kazuki gripped my hand tighter. Our eyes met. She said nothing, but she sadly shook her head. I thought I could tell what she was trying to say. Don't resist. We'd come here to be killed. We would turn ourselves over to Wakui in exchange for Kirisu. We'd run out of ideas. Kazuki's words hadn't worked. Our last hope was to do whatever Wakui wanted. I gripped my fists tightly and swallowed my anger, excuse me.
クルスを解放してください。僕らは抵抗する気はありません。
あ、そうなの？
Wakui chuckled and put his hand on Kirisu's shoulder in a friendly way. That was almost enough to bring the anger back.
その割にはさっき下で何かやってたみたいだけど。
Shit, he'd found out. Kazuki couldn't speak. I had to come up with something.
でも結局何も起きなかったんですよ。だから全部諦めてここに来たんです。あれぐらい見逃してくださいよ。あなたの方が圧倒的に立場は上じゃないですか。殺すなら殺してもいいですから。でもせめてクルスだけは助けてほしいんです。それぐらいのお願いは聞いてくれてもいいでしょ。
宮代くんはそんなに死にたいのかい？
I mean, not necessarily, but if it's to save her, I guess. Gotta do what you gotta do. I gulped.
昨日みたいなことをされるぐらいなら死んだ方がマシです。そうしたら楽になれるから。
I spoke honestly.
そっか、なるほどね。委員会からの指示ではね、君たちを殺せとは言われていないんだ。いや失礼、言い方が正しくないな。和樹くんについては殺すなと言われているんだ。君は貴重なサンプルなんでね。宮代くんについては正直どっちでもよかったりする。彼女からは殺してもいいという許可はもらったわけだから、僕の気分次第という感じかな。
は？
Who was she? Oh, we know. What did he mean it was up to him?
ま、とりあえず宮代くんのことは後で考えるとして。
He laughed mockingly. That's a interesting weapon. And took out a sword. Its shape was so awful, so terrifying, that just seeing it made me want to throw up. It felt like the physical embodiment of what a piece of shit Wakui was.
まずは和樹くんに。
He put the blade up to Kirisu's neck.
絶望してもらおうかな。
What?
待て!
That wasn't the deal. Instantly, Kazuki shook off my hand and made her own D-sword appear. The blade whipped out like a snake and then hardened into a solid straight form. Time for an epic anime fight. She flung it straight at Wakui. It was just a quick snap of the wrist with no wind-up at all, but it flew so fast that it created shockwaves as it traveled. Wakui blocked it with his own blade.
抵抗する気満々じゃないか。先生に嘘はいけないな。嘘をついたのはどの口だい？
What the fuck? Suddenly and inexplicably, Kazuki stuck out her tongue. What was she doing? She looked up toward the ceiling and stuck it out more. She stood up on her tiptoes, her legs shaking like a newborn fawn's, and her hands flapping desperately to keep balance. It was like she was being pulled upward by an invisible fishing hook that had been pierced right through her tongue.
カズキ、どうした？
Tears formed in the corner of her eyes. Her expression contorted in pain. Her eyes looked to me for help.
子供の頃、親に言われたことはないかい？嘘つきは閻魔様に舌を引っこ抜かれるぞってさ。
Well, this is the first time I'm hearing of it. I felt something cold run down my back. I had a very bad feeling. There was no time for me to even reach out my hand before Kazuki bit off her own tongue. Blood splurted everywhere. Her frail body lost its balance and collapsed. Did she do that on purpose, or what happened there? I ran over and held her in my arms. Her eyes had rolled into the back of her head and bubbles were pouring from her mouth as her body spasmed with pain. But there was no blood around her mouth. So, what I had just seen? Confused, I used my fingers to open her mouth. Her tongue was still there. It hadn't been severed. I looked around and couldn't see any pieces of it lying on the floor. Wakui was grinning.
自分が舌を噛み切るリアルな幻覚を見せられたら、さすがにショックでかいよね。
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sure about that.
でもこんなのまだまだ序の口だよ。和樹くんには徹底的に壊れてもらわないと。サンプルっていうのはそういうものだからね。
I didn't even feel any rage. There was only powerlessness and despair. There was no point in even trying to fight him. And I couldn't save anyone, not Kirisu, not Kazuki, not even myself. Everything was up to Wakui now. All I could do was wait for the moment of my death, like cattle. I hadn't even planned on fighting back when I'd come here anyway. I knew I probably wouldn't be able to save Kirisu. That's right. None of this was unexpected. I would be killed and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. There was nothing more to it than that. No matter how much I had to watch Kazuki and Kirisu suffer, they were all going to die anyway. It didn't matter. Once you died, the pain went away. I was tired. I just wanted this over with. Maybe I should bite off my own tongue.
なんだ？宮代くんも壊れ気味なのかい？こらえ性がないな。だったらさっきの続きを見せてあげるよ。
Uh-oh. Wakui put the blade back to Kirisu's neck.
目をそらしてはいけない。しっかり見ておくこと。ほら。
I have a bad feeling about what the hell just happened there. The sharp blade sliced open the white flesh of her neck. Blood spurted out like a fountain. But did that really happen? That's the real question. I watched it as if in a trance. Kirisu's head had slumped forward, so Wakui grabbed it and lifted it up so I could see her face. Her expression was blank. There was no sign of pain, no sign of resistance. That made me feel just a little better. At least, she didn't have to suffer. Wakui's blade was extremely sharp. Well, it's a sword, and it cut through Kirisu's neck like a knife through butter. It didn't seem real at all. It was like watching the death of one of the characters in the game I'd played with Kazuki. Wakui lifted up Kirisu's head and tossed it away. It landed on the ground in front of me as I lay there, her long hair wrapping around it as it rolled. I hadn't realized her head was so small. As I stared at it, someone walked over to me. I looked up. Kirisu's headless body was standing in front of me. The body slowly picked up the head, then went back to the chair. What the hell is happening, dude? Then put its head back on, the same way a person might put on a helmet. A low moan came from its mouth. Kirisu blinked several times and looked at me. What was going on? What kind of nightmare was this? Her head was connected to her body once more. Kirisu saw me and started to cry. What was happening? Why?
2度目は思考を変えてみよ
The second time? What did he mean the second time? Wakui stuck the blade up against her neck again. Chidasu's features contorted with terror.
タクル、助けて。ねえ、助けて。お願い。
やめろ。
It's really hard to tell what's real and what isn't right now. It's kind of messed up. She just died. You just chopped off her head. So why was she asking me for help?
いや、死にたくない。
You already did. Don't look at me that way.
う。さようなら。
いや、いやいやいやいやいや。
She screamed and shook as her neck was sliced open. Her screams quickly stopped and were replaced by a sound like air from a leaky pipe. Her head rolled down and landed on the floor with a thud. What was going on here? Why did Kidasu have to get her head cut off twice? Kidasu had nothing to do with this. She hadn't caused any problems for Wakui or the committee.
幻覚だ。
This was an illusion. That's right, an illusion. Just a delusion that Wakui was forcing me to experience. Kidasu wasn't killed twice. She was killed once, and the second was just an illusion.
拾いなさい。
Wakui said something strange. Kidasu's body stood up in an answer to his words and picked up her head again. Then she put it back on her body. Was she supposed to be that hero whose head was stuffed with red bean paste? This wasn't funny. It wasn't funny at all. But maybe laughing would have made it easier. My vision blurred. I realized I was crying. Maybe she's kind of going through the same thing that Kazuki just kind of went through. Maybe? I started to hear Kidasu's sobs. It's all a delusion, but like, used to break her or whatever. I'm not sure.
タクル、なんで私生きてるの？今首を切られたはずなのに、なんで？ねえ、答えて、タクル。私、なんで涌井先生に殺されてるの？
I felt like I was going to go crazy. I didn't want to see anymore. I wanted everything to go totally black. This was all a delusion, and that's what I wanted to believe. When would it end? How many times would Kidasu have to have her head cut off, before he'd finally let her die? How many times would I have to see her head cut off before he'd finally let me die? I couldn't take it anymore. I was sick of this. If I could just destroy my own mind, then I wouldn't be able to feel anything. I could be at peace until I died. And that would be great, wouldn't it? It would be okay, wouldn't it? And suddenly, there was a noise like a trumpet that filled the whole Shibuya sky.
この音はまさか。
For the first time, Wakui's expression changed to one of shock, and he looked directly at the still unconscious Kazuki. That's right, this sound was one I'd heard already once before.
まさか。
Kazuki's power, Kazuki's words, Kazuki's delusions. Had one become real? The super strong sumo sticker? But if it had, what form was it going to take? If nothing else, I couldn't see anything happening near where we were. Both Wakui and I listened carefully. I tried to listen and see if there was anything to be heard but Kirisu's sobs. I looked around desperately, trying to find the sumo sticker. What was it? What had changed? I heard a faint noise. That didn't sound faint, that sounded deadly and loud. Or maybe enough of a noise to, you know, actually create a vibration. Like a rumble in the distance. It was far smaller than the sound of the trumpet I'd first heard. But the floor began to shake in answer to that sound. There we go. It wasn't an earthquake. The tremors were spaced too closely. It was outside. Something was happening outside. Ignoring Kazuki, Kirisu, and Wakui, I staggered over to the glass window. I wanted to see it for myself. What form had Kazuki's last uncontrollable wish taken? In some tiny corner of my crippled heart, I thought to myself that maybe it would be nice if whatever it was destroyed this whole insane world. I realized that I was on the verge of going mad. But even so, I looked outside with a burning hope in my heart. I looked down at the city of Shibuya below, and there, I saw it. I suddenly realized that something was wrong, and I didn't want to admit that it could be real. I thought it might be another illusion of Wakui's, but...
Nanda! Arya!
Wakui had forgotten all about toying with me, and was instead gazing in awe at the unbelievable sight before him. From the look of things, it wasn't something he had created. It was real. This was what Kazuki had created. When I realized this, I was awestruck. I mean, the scale was all wrong. Oh no. Oh fuck, dude. Wow. Hey, at least there's like some actual sumo to it now. He has his arm around the 107, Jesus. It was holding the cylinder tower of the 107 building like you or I might hold a body pillow. Of course, that's our connection there. It was shaped like a human. It was pretty pudgy. No, it was obese. The surface of its body was slick and shiny. Whether it was sweating, or that was just what its skin was like, I couldn't tell. It was mostly naked except for a loincloth around its waist. Its black hair was oily, and clung tightly to its head. But there was no top knot. Its hair was parted perfectly in the center. Strangely enough, its face had 2 mouths, 2 noses, and 3 eyes. It was not the face of a human, a sumo sticker. Its face was a sumo sticker. The center eye was closed, but the other 2 were flung wide open, and even at this distance, I could see that the giant eyeballs were constantly moving. Its mouth was continually opening and closing. It didn't seem to be eating anything. Whether it was sleepy or thirsty, or maybe even trying to speak, I couldn't tell. Its movements were sluggish and lumbering. It was like a giant monster from a kaiju movie. Yeah, a giant monster. That was the perfect word for it. It was as tall as the 107 building, after all. Giant Sumo Sticker Man, at least that's what I decided to call him, had been very interested in his feat since the moment I'd first seen him. If I remembered right, there was a portal device over there, and the place was crawling with monsters. Giant Sumo Sticker Man lifted up one of his feet off the ground and flicked a little. It was covered with monsters clinging to it. From this distance, they looked like tiny little pieces of garbage, but I could still see them. Giant Sumo Sticker Man kept shaking his left leg, but the monsters didn't let go. And then... okay... the 2 mouths howled in unison, and it slammed its left leg into the ground. The monsters were knocked off. In fact, he crushed the portal device itself. The pyrokinetic had been annihilated when she touched the device, but evidently it wasn't capable of handling something the size of Giant Sumo Sticker Man. The horrible portal device that had caused so much pain was crushed beneath the feet of giant sumo sticker man. That truly is a beautiful sight right there. I want to use that as the thumbnail, but I'm not sure. I guess we'll see what I do. I started to laugh. This time, it wasn't out of resignation. I hadn't gone crazy. Faced with the overwhelming size and scale of giant sumo sticker man, after all the time I'd spent running around and being afraid for the past week, it all just seemed kind of stupid.
Oi, oi. Oi, oi, oi! なんだよありゃ! ありえないよ! むちゃくちゃじゃないか!
I could understand why Wakui was panicking. In the face of something like that, your only options were to laugh, scream, or pretend it didn't exist. Who the hell had dreamed that thing up? Multiple people had to share the same precise image, down to the smallest details, for Kazuki's words to become real. Is that what they'd taken from Super Strong Sumo Sticker? It was a miracle created by astronomical odds. The human imagination could be a scary, scary thing.
Takuru, senpai.
Well, she seems to be awake. That's always good. Kazuki had woken up and staggered over to me. I quickly grabbed her body and to steady her. Her mouth fell open too when she saw giant sumo sticker man.
あれって私が
きっとそうだ。
だったら
Kazuki closed her eyes tight.
涌井先生をぶっ倒してくれないかな
As if in answer to her words, giant sumo sticker man howled once more. Holy shit, dude. All the eyes are open, and waved its giant arms, knocking down the 107 building tower. As the rubble and dust flew up into the air, giant sumo sticker man looked at us. That is lovely. Did he recognize us? Or maybe Kazuki? Giant sumo sticker man's central eye opened. It was a black pupil with crimson iris. Or with a crimson iris. And the third eye was looking straight at us. When it saw us, a sense of indescribable terror and exhaustion raced through my body. My knees started to shake and I couldn't even stand. My vision blurred, my ears started to ring, and I felt like I was going to throw up. I imagined every drop of blood in my body freezing. My whole body started to shudder from the cold. It was a million times worse than the sumo stickers I'd seen around the city. What happened to Wakui? I forced myself to look through my blurred vision. He was kneeling on the floor and vomiting. It was working. Giant sumo sticker man was nullifying his power.
Kazuki.
Kazuki had gone pale and was clinging to me tightly. I shook her by the shoulders.
あれに命令しろ。巨大力士シールマンはお前の言うことなら聞いてくれるかもしれない。
Kazuki nodded through the pain. She looked back out at giant sumo sticker man.
来いこっちに来い
Her voice was a hoarse whisper. But he heard it. Giant sumo sticker man unleashed a mighty roar from both of his two mouths and took a slow, ponderous step forward. This is so ridiculous and I'm just loving every bit of it, to be honest. His blubber shook as he walked. He traveled the distance between the 107 building and Scramble Crossing in only a few steps. Maybe he could sense Kazuki's thoughts. I had no idea how it worked, and I didn't care. At this point, there was no point in even asking questions. Yeah, honestly. I couldn't get distracted.
来い
君たちなんてものを生み出してくれたんだ。あのデタラメな存在は一体なんだ。世界の秩序とか一切無視か。
Wakui stood up and slowly moved toward us, shaking and wobbling as he moved. I slid between him and Kazuki and pushed him away. He couldn't regain his balance and fell flat on his behind.
力が入らない。力士シールの効力なのか。
Yeah, kinda.
なるほど。そういうことか。あんなものをリアルブートしたのにはそういう理由が。アンチギガロマニアックスの巨人とでも言う気かい。まったくふざけてるな。だが勝ったつもりにならない方がいい。
At almost the same exact moment, the Wakui readied his D-sword once more. Uh-oh. There was a roar from below that shook the whole building. I looked down to see what had happened, and Giant Sumo Sticker Man was lying on top of an elevated section of the Yamanote railway line. Sometimes I really just have to second guess myself. He must have tripped on it. He grabbed the side of the station building and used it to help himself up, crushing the tracks in the process. And then he moved forward and slammed himself into the side of the Hikariwo. The Hikariwo was struck with the force of hundreds, no thousands of Yokozunas. The body slams continued, again and again. The building itself began to buckle, and the shockwave sent us to the floor. The glass broke and poured down on us. I felt a cold wind on my skin. When the shaking finally stopped, I looked up to see what had happened to Kazuki and Kirisu. I was relieved to see that they hadn't fallen out of the window. But Wakui was still alive. He'd stood up before we had and was cursing us in rage. There was another huge shock. Wakui and the rest of us were knocked away. I was worried that the Hikariwo might break.
君たち悪いけどあれなんとかしてくれないかな。あーいやいい。やっぱりいいや。先に君たちを殺すから。
Wakui didn't even have the energy left to keep up his good teacher act. He readied his D-sword, his face flushed with anger. He attacked us in desperation, even though it was obvious he could barely stand. He was obsessed, but I wasn't ready to give up yet either. We finally had our own trump card, Giant Sumo Sticker Man, and I was every bit as obsessed with killing Wakui. I grabbed Kazuki's body in my arms and leapt outside through the broken window. Holy shit.
Senpai.
The ground got closer and closer. I was scared. If I hit the ground at this speed, my bones would shatter, my body would be crushed, and I'd die in a spray of blood and organs. There was nothing to support me, nothing to grab onto. I couldn't keep my balance in midair. I clung tightly to Kazuki.
Kazuki, あれにキャッチさせろ!
Kazuki quickly understood and looked around for it. There was no need to look. Giant Sumo Sticker Man was right under us, clinging to the Hikariwo building. He twisted his neck to look at us. A huge flabby hand was extended beneath us and caught us. It was soft like a cushion. We were still going pretty fast though, so the impact was intense. But at least we were alive. I looked up. What a beautiful sight. I could see his arm, his shoulder, and his giant sumo sticker face. Seen from up close, it made me feel even sicker. A part of me wanted to jump off and die rather than stay here. I closed my eyes, gritted my teeth, and did my best to fight the impulse.
Miyashiro! Kazuki!
Hey, that's us. I could hear Wakui's voice from above. I looked up and saw that he had jumped out of the building too. Well, he's an idiot. Oh shit. God damn, that's wacky. A huge bird, like something out of an encyclopedia of dinosaurs, had flown from out of nowhere, and Wakui had grabbed onto its leg. It slid through the air toward us.
あの鳥、円数2に出てくるやつかも。ゲツァルコアトルスって名前。
I don't really know if that part is important, but okay. It was pink and almost completely featherless. I could tell by comparing its size to Wakui's that its wingspan was over 5 meters long. There was no such bird as that, and even if there was, it wouldn't live in the middle of Tokyo, and even if it did, it wouldn't be taking orders from Wakui. Wakui's delusions had created it. Wakui flew past giant sumo sticker man, slicing into its shoulder with his D-sword. Its two mouths moaned in pain. Instead of blood, white sumo stickers spurted out of the wound. The wind carried them across the Shibuya sky. Of course, the giant sumo sticker man is filled with sumo stickers. That is just perfect. Again, not questioning anything, I'm just rolling with the tomfoolery that is going on right now. I think that's all I can do. This is insane. Wakui spun around in midair for another attack.
Kazuki?
Then I realized that Kazuki was holding the sides of her temples in pain. Her body was so hot in my arms that I thought I might get burned. She was feeling weak. I wasn't sure if it was because of Wakui's attack, or the fact that she'd used her power. Or maybe it was because she was giving orders to Giant Sumo Sticker Man.
無理するな。
I screamed, unable to stand seeing her in that state. But she immediately shook her head, and looked at me in desperation. She spoke the words clearly.
あいつ倒そう。チャンス今しかないから。武器を手に入れたんだから使って。
Could I do it? Kazuki grabbed me by the necktie, as if to urge me on. She gritted her teeth, and whispered in my ear through the pain.
先輩が指示してください。そしたら戦える。
I could do it. I could fight. In fact, I had a monster at my disposal that was capable of ripping Wakui in two, which meant I would use that power to survive.
わかった。
Kazuki nodded, and Giant Sumo Sticker Man's fingers closed around us. He brought his hand up and sat us on his shoulder. Oh, how beautiful. It was a little more unstable than his palm, but at least here I wouldn't have to look at his face. Just as I thought, moving up here made me feel a lot better. I had Kazuki summon her D-sword and plunge it into Giant Sumo Sticker Man's neck, giving us support so that we wouldn't fall off.
Miyashiro!
That's us. Wakui was getting closer. He wasn't our club advisor or anything else. A committee of 300 could go to hell. Giant Sumo Sticker Man's arm flew forward. He smashed Wakui with an open palm the same way you'd swat a fly. Wakui landed hard near Memorial Park. The impact could easily have killed him, but he wasn't normal, so I wasn't going to show any mercy. In a single bound, Giant Sumo Sticker Man covered the distance between here and Memorial Park. He could jump an amazing distance for a fat man. Kazuki and I clung as tightly as we could to the D-sword in order to avoid falling off. He landed hard, crushing the area where Wakui had fallen. The impact kicked up rubble and dust around his feet. Did we win? I looked down into the dust. Wakui's D-sword flew up through the cloud. It was so fast that there was no time to dodge. The sharp blade stabbed into my shoulder. It tore through flesh and bone. The pain was incredible. I felt like I was going to pass out.
Takuru-senpai!
Kazuki held me up. She grabbed my hand and placed it on the D-sword. It was just barely enough to keep me from falling. I bit my lip to get through the pain, and looked in the direction the sword had come from. Wakui was down there covered in blood and looking up at us in fury, just a little from the spot where Giant Sumo Sticker Man had landed.
Miyashiro!
Giant Sumo Sticker Man flicked Wakui away with his foot. Wakui's body flew like a ping pong ball. At that point, the fight was over. But I wasn't done yet. By weapon, I meant the Shibuya Earthquake Memorial, which had survived the impact of the jump and was sticking out of the ground near Giant Sumo Sticker Man's feet. Wow. He reached down and yanked it out of the earth. His eyes locked on Wakui as he flew through the air. Giant Sumo Sticker Man flung back the arm holding the memorial. Get his ass. Kazuki's will and mine dwelt within the giant sumo wrestler's body. His arm snapped forward. The memorial was flung like a spear. Damn, he got some titties. The spear instantly crossed the speed of sound. With a sonic boom, it smashed straight into Wakui and obliterated his body. And that was the end. The D-sword in my shoulder disappeared in a halo of light. Wakui was dead. He never had a chance. It was a one-sided slaughter. The giant sumo wrestler howled into the open air. He was a destructive monster. He was a brutal giant. We had created something that threatened to destroy the balance of the entire world. I looked up at the Hikariwo and saw Kirisu waving at us from the shattered sky lobby window.
死ねなかったね、先輩。
Yeah, for now though. For better or for worse, both Kazuki and I had survived. What awaited us now was a hell worse than anything we'd gone through so far. We might have brought this terror not only to ourselves, but to the entire world. Nothing about the world would ever be the same, and we'd be left to make our way in it, like lost and frightened children. Even without the Committee of 300's decision, Kazuki and I were enemies of the world for creating such a place. Maybe it would have been better if Wakui had killed us. There was that, and then the fact that I had no idea what we were going to do next. And then the fact that my shoulder was still bleeding and it hurt like hell, but... Kazuki was in my arms, looking relieved and at peace. So at least for this one moment, I could be grateful for the warmth I felt. And that's what I thought. Okay, but... Oh no. The credits that I have now skipped.
ねえ、タク、楽しかった？
Uh-oh. Don't laugh like that. Oh, okay. I guess that was it. Deep Sky End. Okay. So Serica had some involvement there, maybe? Kinda? I guess it's always helpful to consider Serica in these stories, but what a fucking train wreck that was, and not in a bad way, not at all. But that was such a completely different story than what we went through with Arimura. Instead of just learning about the backstory and experiencing some sort of story that related to that, and of course, you know, that little romantic interest, this was completely different. So starting off in the same location that Arimura's route started, Oh, excuse me. But actually going in a completely different way of dealing with Hidoriko. Instead of her being arrested or her killing herself due to brainwashing, we take care of her because of Kazuki's power. Kazuki's power, you know, has that side effect. Monsters get created. We learn about the side effects of Kazuki's power and everything that's bad about it and why she doesn't speak. And then we try to save the day after finding out that our club advisor is actually also an antagonist. Wow. Like, just totally different. Like, absolutely freaking different. But there it is, Deep Sky End. That's, God damn, what a fucking ride. That was just wild. But I do want to go ahead and experience, just very quickly, what would happen if we chose all the wrong shit for that map trigger. So where was that? Shit, there's 2 of them. What the fuck? Why are there 2 of them? Okay, wait, I see. So there were 2 sets of times we were answering shit. Okay, so very quickly, I do want to see what the bad ending is. You know, just for shits and giggles. So, you know, we'll just choose some, you know, completely wrong answers here. We'll just purposely get it wrong and see what would happen. So we'll go over here. Yeah, let's select the high school, a completely different high school than ours. What do y'all have to say to that?
たちはどうだった?
2つ見つけたよ。
I guess they're not gonna say anything. I guess we're just gonna add on to what's like really fucked. What's another wrong one? What's not correct? I guess like maybe down here at the shrine. Okay, well, yep, that looks completely fucked. All right, I cannot wait to see what will happen. Maybe nothing will happen. Well, actually, no, something has to happen because we utilized the map in order to figure out what direction we needed to go in. So I guess we'll have to, or I'll cross my fingers and we'll see what happens here. Oh hey, this is different. If we wanted to get to the Hikariwa, we'd have to avoid the monsters appearing from the portal device. Fortunately, after everyone's efforts yesterday, we knew where they were. I had the location saved on my Pokecom. We could use it to take, oh, okay, I see where this is going. Kazuki looked gloomy. We were gonna die. I didn't blame her. But that didn't mean we could stay here. If we didn't go, we couldn't save Kirisu.
行こう。
I urged Kazuki on as we headed for the station. Time to get eaten by monsters. But I'd underestimated things. I'd underestimated how dangerous Shibuya was. I underestimated how much the delusion Kazuki had created and echoed. I had underestimated everything. Yeah, those are the sounds of monsters. Are we running away from them or some shit? I ran and found myself in a typical Shibuya back alley. How had this happened? There was a terrifying roar from behind us. The footsteps were loud enough to shake the ground, and they were getting closer. I turned back, afraid and in despair. A huge red dragon thing was following us through the narrow alley. Kazuki was clinging to my arm, completely out of breath. How had this happened? To put it simply, the map was wrong. There was a discrepancy between the map we'd made for the portal devices and where they really were. And because of that, I ran straight into the monsters like an idiot. It was my mistake. I'd been careless. I should have been more careful when going over all this with the newspaper club yesterday. But now that I had screwed up, there was no sense in dwelling on yesterday's mistakes. At this rate, we'd both end up as dragon food. I wouldn't make it to the Hikariwo, and I wouldn't be able to save Kirisu. I didn't plan on surviving anyway, but I had hoped at least that Kirisu could. If I got eaten by a monster here, I would die for nothing. Kazuki was still panting, her shoulders shaking with pain. Her forehead was covered in sweat. I couldn't count on her for anything for a while. This was my screw up, and I had to be the one to fix it. What were we gonna do? I looked around. I was looking for my D-sword. If I could use that weapon too. I'd seen Arimura and Kazuki use it, and I knew well how powerful it was. Maybe that would be enough for me to fight back against that monster. It would be better than trying my karate at least. I didn't even know we had that to our disposal. So come on. Come on, D-sword, up here. Of course, I had no guarantee it would. It was too much to hope for that I might find my D-sword here. But I had to pray anyway. Yeah, we didn't do any practicing with it in this route. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere.
なんでだよ。ちょっとぐらいこっちの頼みを聞いてくれてもいいじゃないか。
I couldn't help but complain to God, or maybe fate. In the face of death, in the face of overwhelming pain, or power, excuse me. Why couldn't they at least give me a little hope?
出てきてくれよ、ディソード!
I screamed. And the monster screamed too. Oh no, I'd pissed it off. And it was finally starting to calm down. I put my hand over my mouth to stifle a moan of terror. And in my mind, I tried to focus on using the only weapon I had. I was looking at a scooter parked on the road. I glared at it and grit down on my teeth. I focused. Move, I said. If I could use my power to slam it into the monster's head, I could buy us time. Even if I couldn't use the D-sword, if I could at least use this. I wasn't able to use it at all when I'd been chased by the pyrokinetic, but this time, move, 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 move. That's what you're for, right? That's why I was given this power, right? In comics and anime, your power always awakens at times like this. Now. It has to be now. I can't die here. I need to save Kirisu. So move, move, move. Okay, I think we get the picture here. I don't think it's happening, bud. I screamed. I focused. I bit down so hard that I drew blood. But my power didn't appear. Heaven had given up on me. Fate was telling me to die here. Sure, I'll die. I planned on dying anyway. But at least let me choose where I die. This isn't fair.
Kazuki.
Once again, I
助けてくれ。
made a selfish request
あの化け物を何とかしてくれ。
of this tiny, weak, and silent little girl. I gave up and entrusted everything to her.
このままじゃ僕ら死ぬ。光王にも行けずに死んじゃうんだぞ。
Kazuki had finally caught her breath. She gulped once and moved away from me toward the monster.
なんとかなるんだな。なんとかしてくれるんだよな。
She shook her head.
そんなのわからないかもだけど、できることやるしかないから。
That was all she said.
フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。
That was what she screamed.
フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。
She was trying to use her words to make a delusion echo again?
フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。
But
無駄だ。
it's hopeless, Kazuki. Your words won't echo through Shibuya right now. They won't spread. There's a curfew. No one's out here to hear you.
フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。
Kazuki must have known it was useless too, but she kept screaming.
フレイムアークドラゴンは死ぬ。
But even her sad, useless struggle was cut off by a roar that shook the air. The monster had been keeping its distance, but now it howled and charged again. Its huge red body bore down on us. There was nowhere to run. We were going to be eaten just like that reporter. Kazuki readied her D-sword. She stood in front of the monster. She was so small compared to it. But I still had hope. Maybe that sword could do it. Maybe the D-sword could surely kill the monster. Kazuki attacked. She charged at the monster and swung the sword down. We were going to survive and make it to the Hikariwo. So please survive, Kazuki. But of course, reality wasn't so kind. The monster howled once more and whipped out its front leg. Kazuki's body flew away. Its legs were thicker than tree trunks, and its claws were sharp. It was a simple matter for it to tear apart a human body. It was just like stepping on an insect. Kazuki was killed. It happened so fast I couldn't even follow it. But still I screamed. The strength fled from my legs, and the next thing I knew I was lying on the ground. I couldn't stand. I didn't have the strength. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was an idiot. I was wrong to ever think I could take a monster like this head on. It didn't matter whether I was using my power or the D-sword. The monster ignored the bloody lump that had once been Kazuki and turned toward me. I underestimated it. All the monsters in Shibuya were just so unreal that I'd felt like I was playing a game. I thought that I would be the one person who was okay. I thought that since Kazuki had created the delusions, they wouldn't attack her. But Kazuki was dead. She'd been slaughtered by the delusions she'd created. This was insane. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think it was real. A huge jaw swung down in front of me. The breath that came out of it smelled terrible. Terror pierced my body as I heard the monster roar. I was forced to realize that I was powerless to do anything but become its next prey. The monster put no special thought into eating its prey. It just ate what was in front of it. The dragon opened its mouth. I saw countless rows of fangs. It could crush a human skull the same way I could eat a candy bar. I'm sorry, Kirisu. In the end, I couldn't do anything at all. I couldn't save anyone at all. This was all my fault. And now it was time to take responsibility for all the chaos I had caused. I could feel the monster's fangs bite deep into my body. And I could tell it had bitten off my torso. Just before everything went black, I realized that this is what it meant to become something's dinner. Wow. Goddamn. Well, that wasn't fun. If anything, that was more of like a flat out just bad turn of events from a route. Whereas the bad ending that we got from Arimura's route, I mean, it was bad because you didn't get that realization, or you didn't get to see that, hey, that's a false reality that it ends off with. You don't get to see the actual truth. You're left with a false sense, or a false ending, I guess you could say. Where the bad ending in the common route really was also bad as well. You kind of just get killed. Everything just ends there because you're an idiot. And I guess that's the same thing here. You're an idiot, so things end, I guess things end badly if you're a fool and you don't pay attention. Well, all right. So I guess my opinions on the on this route, because I didn't really have a lot of them. I was just making comparisons. It was nuts. I think everybody that was commenting about this one was absolutely correct, and their excitement was totally understandable. This was an absolutely nutty route. And like the way it ends too, like it doesn't really end in any sort of conclusive way. It kind of just leaves, or it ends not necessarily on a cliffhanger, but it leaves it open-ended, so you can kind of make your own conclusions based on what's there, because anything could happen going forward. Like, it's really hard to tell what could happen. The best way I can see things wrapping up is, you know, for them to destroy those portals, since that sumo sticker guy definitely could do so. That's probably the best way of getting rid of all those portals so that there's no more monsters just spawning in. But portals are also still spawning in, so I don't know. It could also just be like a repetitive mess. The world may just be fucked. That could also be a deal. I don't know, but it was interesting. The way that it went about this story, there's no backstory, really no romantic interest. It was just chaos. Not in the same sense that we're used to seeing with the Delusions, gigalomaniacs, killings from, who knows who, and there being like an overarching mystery. It was just straight to the point chaos. And I would say I enjoyed it. I definitely would not say that I loved every bit of it or anything like that. It was like a freaking masterpiece of a story, but it was very enjoyable. I would say that was a pretty goddamn good route, and it kept things fresh. So I'm hoping that for whatever is next, I don't know if Kirisu is coming up or whatever. I know she's supposed to be last, so whose route would we be going on next? It would be, would it be what's her face's? Shit, I've already forgotten her name because we haven't seen her in a while. The girl with the glasses, the small girl. Shit, what? I cannot. Uki. Uki's her name. That's right. Uki's her name. Would she have a route? Now that I know that romantic interest isn't like going to be a thing that's going to plague every route, maybe we get to learn about her and her her delusional abilities or whatever. Her powers as a psychic, I guess I should say. Get to learn about that. Maybe that's next. I'll cross my fingers on that one because I'm actually I'm hoping we get to learn about her, And then after that, I guess that would be Kirisu. There's only 4 routes, right? And then we get the true end or whatever it is. We get another route that's unlocked after completing these 4 routes. I know that for a fact. I don't know if it's the true end, but I hope it's some sort of maybe continuation or at least something to the common route, the overarching story. I rambled on enough. I'm going to wrap this episode up. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this longer episode than others because I tried to include that bad ending there just for the sake of having it here. And that's why I've been including them. I don't know if you need to include them. I'm pretty sure you don't. I just want to experience them. I'm really into all this, obviously. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this longer than most episodes. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe if you want to, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. I think we have negative delusions to go through next. I think that's what I saw last time on that website, on that guide. I think we're going to be going through some good old negative delusions. I hope these ones will be entertaining. I'll see you guys then. Take it easy.